Hey everyone, you're listening to Hocked Unloaded with writer-director Steve Drake and producer Rachel Franz. This is the podcast where we tell you about how we made our first feature film, Hocked. Each week, we'll bring on a new guest and they'll share their experience of what it was like making this film. Today we're talking to Jaelyn Silvey. She was an instrumental part of the making of Hocked. Jaelyn assisted with character development during pre-production, was the assistant director and acting coach during production, and all of this was on top of her role as the mystery character Jay. We hope you enjoy it. Jaelyn, welcome to Hocked Unloaded, and thanks for being here.
Hi.
Jaelyn or Jay?
Whatever works.
Have you had to change your name to anyone these days?
No.
After playing Jay, the murderous monster?
No, because there's a spelling difference. So I go by J, J-A-E, and that's like what I do at work, and so nobody knows because J is just a J.
The letter J. Here's a question for you, Steve. When you made the character Jay, was it because you knew you wanted your sister Jay to play Jay?
A little bit of both, I think. Because I remember very early on, I was like, okay, who are we going to get to play this bad guy? Well, who has the most experience? And what are we going to call this person? Because we did want it to be a little bit of a twist at the end, that it's this young girl who's just this incredible badass. I think one of the first things I told you was Lucy Liu's character on Kill Bill.
Mm-hmm.
She's a badass, and she's like terrifying, and she doesn't even like talk all that much. But it was just like, that's kind of where I thought would be cool. And you were obviously our biggest asset as far as someone who could actually act. So it's like, okay, if anyone can pull off the bad guy, it's got to be J-A-E to play Jay. Period.
Thanks for spelling it out.
You're welcome. And it's one of those names that it's like, okay, Jay, it could be a dude named Jay, J-A-Y usually, or it could just be Jay, J-A-E. You never know. Or it's just Jay. So.
Very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. But,
keeps the mystery alive.
Yeah. So you work at Wild Joe's.
Sure do.
You get recognized.
Couple of times.
Since it's right across the street from the theater we premiered it at.
Yeah, I think it's 3 times now I've been recognized in the past couple of weeks for it.
It's weird, right?
Has it affected your tips at all? People are scared of you? They're going to give you more money?
I hope so.
I hope that's how it's working out for you,
20%
not the other way
or
around.
more, guys. 20%.
That's what I told her earlier, but whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
How did you help the team get the most out of their actors as well as direct Steve in the scenes that he was acting in?
Well, I think for especially first-time actors, it's really important to make them feel comfortable and relaxed because it's already so high pressure to be like, all right, now you have to look like you really hate this person. Like, how do you do that if you don't know the people you're working with or if you feel uncomfortable? So creating a very, like, relaxed environment, which I think we all helped with that, just very easygoing, no, like, big pressure things, like allowing lots of retakes. And for Steve, oh my God.
There's a bit of a family dynamic that comes in there. So how do you go from being the little sister to all of a sudden being the professional that tells brother what to do?
Always loved, never tortured little sister.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Couldn't even get far in that sentence.
Nope. I think, again, the same, knowing that Steve's my brother, and no matter what I say to him, like, it's okay. That definitely helped. And just think, like, just getting you out of your head and out of your body and just, like, thinking, like, all right, what's the most essential part of this scene right now? You really hate that TFB just walked through the door. Where does that, like, feel in your body? Where are you going to, like, express it the most? And for Steve, it happened to be in his eyes and his eyebrows.
He has a very expressive face.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird. Why? Why is that happening?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It
No
must-
one else did that,
It must
really.
be a family thing because I also have a very expressive face. My eyebrows can do crazy things.
Yeah. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
How do you teach that? You teach that? Or is that just natural
It's
eyebrow
just-
ability?
natural.
Born with.
I try not to, when I'm directing, tell them like to do a specific thing, because the director's job is to like help the vision come to life, but the actor gets to embody that vision, and they're allowed creative liberty in what they're doing. So I can't tell you like you have to raise an eyebrow right here, because to me that might seem natural as the director, but as the actor that might be the most random wild thing. You're like, that doesn't feel right. I would rather cross my arms or just take a deep breath. And that's where you have to allow that flexibility between director and actor to be like, okay, well then let's try it how you're feeling. And then if it works and it's like, cool, that was great, thank you. Or if it doesn't work, let's be like, all right, let's try something else. What if we felt it in your shoulders instead of like crossing your arms or in your face?
I can't raise one eyebrow, so that
Really?
never would have worked with me. No, I can do this.
Wow. Wow.
You look
You
both
can't see
really
that on the video
confused.
or the podcast, but boy, it doesn't look good.
So
It's like a full
confused.
stroke. Not even
Yeah.
like half the face is
I can't do
paralyzed.
it. I have to like.
Well,
Even then, I can't do it. Doesn't matter.
Well, you know, I thought that was really cool to watch, and that was something I didn't realize was going to happen, was letting these people who weren't actors roll with these roles. Because when you write it, and like you have this idea, because you're just one perspective, right? And you're like, well, if I was Booger in this scene, I'd be a real jerk, and I'd stomp on the ground, and maybe I'd even throw something. But then, Josh comes in and does everything to take over the character, and then he is Booger. He's not Booger like I wrote him.
Booger.
Yeah, he became Booger, which I thought that was awesome to see, and I didn't expect that at all. So,
As the director and as the writer, somebody who created this story, you came in with a very specific individual vision of what it is, and I would imagine that would be very difficult for you to let it go and let all of us run wild with these characters that you created and listen to all of us be like, what if it was more like this? What if Kelly actually had kids? Was it difficult?
not all the time. I think sometimes it helped a lot.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of time to write it at all, or give it out to the actors, or do table reads, or run-throughs. We didn't have any time to do, like, any of that. So I think we found a lot of the really good performances through doing it 100 times the day of. Like, it would be like take 8, and finally we'd be like, every take we'd pick one little thing. It was like,
Right.
take 1, it's like, well, I really liked how you were standing. And like, take 2, I like the inflection, mix that with the way you're standing. Take 3, it's like, well, I really like the sassiness on that one, line. Okay, keep that. And then, yeah, by take 9, it was basically us doing walkthroughs, but we just had it all on film. And we were able to, I had so much footage to cut between, it was just, like, ridiculous. So,
But were there any scenes in particular that you just, like, hated the way the actor played it? Or you couldn't get the actor to do something? Because I have a few scenes that I'm like, oh, I wish we could have done something different. But I'm the assistant director, so that's not my job.
Yeah, but you also have more experience directing people.
True.
Nothing against you, Steve, but she maybe has a bit of a more trained eye for that kind of thing.
in person, like a live eye, that makes a lot of sense in hindsight.
Well, I work in live theater,
Right.
so I see it on stage, and you work in film, so you see it behind a screen.
Well, the problem, too, with wearing so many hats is, like, yeah, I'm listening to the dialogue, but I'm almost listening to the dialogue at, like, 25% brain capacity, because I'm also worried about, holding the camera correctly and not
lighting.
getting the lights and, like, making sure that the boom pole is running or this and that and all these other things are, like,
Yeah, when you've got 2 people doing the work of, like, the whole production team, you really are, like, a million different places in your brain.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to have people like Jaelyn.
Oh, totally. Just another set of eyes that's actually focused on performance and, like, timing and all that. I think that was super helpful. I only remember getting frustrated once, and I think it was at Dave. But I think Dave wanted to, like, change something, and it was just like, no, Dave, we don't have time to do this. But then I think it ended up being helpful in the long run.
I
There's
don't know.
some plot device that, like, wouldn't have made sense in that scene at the time, I think. I don't remember the specifics, but there was that. I mean, there's a couple of performances where it was like, I don't know if this is convincing or not. That happens a lot with video, where you're like, if you leave a video shoot feeling really good, it's almost a little scary. Because you're like, ooh.
What did I miss?
It's
God,
like
I
having
hope
a
it's
really good
really
dress
good.
rehearsal right before you open. If you have a perfect seamless dress, then it's like bad luck because then
It's
you're going
kinda
to
like
screw something up on your opening night.
Because just the production's not the end of it. You have to go into post-production. You got to put this thing all together. So if it feels really good, but then it ends up not looking as good as it felt, you're in trouble. Whereas there were days that I was like, oh, this was a bad day. I couldn't get jack from people. And then it ended up being like really good. And I was pleasantly surprised by a lot of people's reviews of certain characters and like who people liked and all sorts of stuff. It was the whole thing's very shocking as far as what I planned and what happened.
There was one day that so we had to share you, Jaelyn, quite a bit with your actual life because you come high in demand with all of these talents of yours.
Yeah. Making coffee, directing middle schoolers, so many talents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had a lot more responsibilities than the people we generally were looking for. You know, everybody had normal lives and made time for us, but I feel like you had a normal life plus X, Y, and Z, all of these other commitments. So there were a lot of days where we would have to shoot and then be like, this is how it went, Jaelyn. Maybe take a look. This is the scene that we're going to prep for the next one. So it was a lot of like running and gunning with you. And there was one day I remember that I wish you had been there because we were, and I think you were there for part of the day, but not this part. We were with Dave and Chris. And it's when they come into the pawn shop and they buy the grips off of that 45. And Dave kept saying, thank you for both your time.
Thank you for both your time.
And I kept thinking, because in the script I think it was, thank you both for your time. But he kept saying, thank you for both your time. And that sounds so wrong to me.
It sounds wrong, but
And
I
I
don't
remember
know if it is wrong.
I was filming it because you were in the scene. And I remember just being like, Dave, thank you both for your time. Not thank you for both your time. And he just kept saying it his way. And I think it got to the point where I was like, no, it doesn't make sense like that. And Steve was like, it doesn't matter. We're moving on.
I still don't know if it matters or not.
But even watching it and that scene pops up and he says that, I'm just like, it sounds wrong. It sounds wrong to me.
It sounds wrong, but a real human said it. Dave said it.
I know,
so it kind of
but
makes
that
me
doesn't
think
mean
that's how
Dave is
Dave
right.
would say it.
It doesn't mean Dave's right.
Well,
Josh's name was Booger, and he called himself Booger.
But that's just Josh being
But
Josh.
that's like character
No.
development right there, though, deciding that it's something different, more pretentious, because he has a more pretentious background.
Yes.
Well, then Curtis is wrong. The character Curtis is
The
wrong.
line reading, that's a tricky one because you want the actor to, like, say it how you want, but also they're just, like, you have to make sure the lines flow correctly. Otherwise, it sounds like the writer did a crappy job writing it.
Hey,
Yeah.
I ain't
And
saying
it's
the
like
writing
a
was
weird
great.
fine...
Who wrote this thing?
Who wrote this thing?
It's like a weird fine line. Like, I do that when I'm in a play. I'm like, if I mess up these words, if the playwright's sitting there, is she going to, like, freak out because I said it wrong? Is the whole meaning going to be off because I flipped, like, 3 words? And I think in the end it doesn't matter, but yeah, it's annoying.
Here's an interesting thing to run by you. Our friends at the Cleachy Tapes, Morgan and Tyler, in one of their episodes, and I think I brought this up with Patrick too, but in one of their episodes, they talked about how they told the actor what they basically wanted them to say and then just let them say it their own way. What do you think about that?
I think-
Should we have just done that? Should we have just been like, this is the point you need to get across, say something?
Yes and no. I think you guys kind of did that in the scene where Steve and Booger get in a really big fight. You kind of just let the lines go and just let yourselves get angry at each other. And I think sometimes that's very beneficial to be like, here's the one point that you have to make in this scene. Like, just get there somehow. And you can find a lot of crappy stuff by doing that, and lines you're like, no, throw that out the window. But you can also find some real, genuine lines that are like that person would say as their character. So I think there's value in it. I don't think we should have done the whole movie like that, because I think some of our actors would have done nothing.
There's a built-in repertoire with a couple people. So like Josh and I, we're able to bounce off stuff. The Bobcat conversation is a real conversation that we've had countless times. So
and
we've
it feels real.
Right, and so we tapped into that because neither of us are actors. You know, Dave and Chris, I'm not sure if originally Curtis and Clay were written in as brothers, but they got written in because, like, okay, well, we're getting Chris to play Dave's brother, or, you know, counterpart. Let's make them brothers so we can tap into that because that's real. You know, tapping into the real things in people's lives. Same with the real detectives, Bob and Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, they were basically
awesome.
given that exact example. Like, hey, you got to say this in like 45 seconds. I'm going to say a line, and then you have to, you know, just start on Booger and how he's the biggest piece of shit in the world. And then Scott, come in when you're satisfied and say, nah, bring it back to Laney. And then go. And they were just real detectives. So they would just really put these moves and, like, you could tell every line they said in there, they had said to a real person of interest before. And that made me feel really cool when we were in there. And, we were getting real stuff from people. It wasn't fake.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I can never tell Steve any secrets that I don't want the cops to know because he's going to crack.
Because I'm such a good actor.
Yeah, that was acting.
Mm-hmm.
Steve's a pussy.
You were sweating bullets, man.
Yeah.
You look so uncomfortable in that scene.
Also,
Thank you.
Your
So
eye was like
uncomfortable.
bloodshot in the corner of it.
I also haven't slept in a while.
Yeah,
So.
the like close-up scene of Steve in the interrogation room, and it's like he's looking one way and he looks the other way. Like there's just like bloodshot in the corner of like Steve's eye towards his nose, and it just looks like somebody stabbed him in the eye.
And someone pistol whipped me previous to that.
He pretty much only survived off of caffeine for the last few months.
Yeah.
I bet.
I have one thing I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
It's real exciting.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm very excited as to what you have to
You
say.
sound so excited.
Jaelyn, you were a part of the casting call. Take me through the time that Dave did his monologue.
Oh,
Hold
my God.
Hold on. Steve, think about how you listened to yourself today on the podcast and think about how stupid you're going to sound.
Whatever, man. I talk how I talk. I don't care.
You want to keep it like that.
Blow me, world.
All right.
Same question, Jaelyn.
Dave's monologue was terrifying as hell.
Hold on, let me set the stage.
Okay.
Here we are. We've sat at the casting call all day.
12 hours.
We had Brittany showed up. She's our friend, right? And she did read for, I think, J and TFB and The Good Detective.
Good detective, yeah.
We're like, oh, she could probably be TFB, right?
We even thought about putting her as the good detective, too.
Right. Dawn showed up at some point.
Yeah, she was
Shouldn't
early
use
in
her
the
name.
day.
Whatever her name is.
The nice lady.
Beep her name out.
A very nice professional actor who turned out not to have any interest in our film, but
Didn't
was
agree
very
with her
nice.
morals. We've talked about her.
Good job. That's a good spin, Jay. Yeah, she showed up and she read for, I think, the same 3, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she wouldn't swear, which was weird. But anyway.
There were only 3 female roles in the whole movie, so.
That's true. So that happened. And then Josh and I did some work in the back. And then it was basically like we were tired. Oh, and the stripper showed up. Selena showed up and was like, I have a stripper pole. And we're like,
We're like, you just
you're
got
in."
typecasted. Yeah.
Yeah.
She is probably going to listen to this. She's been commenting on all our stuff.
She's awesome, and we appreciated all of the
I
work she
really
did for
appreciated
us.
it. There was no way we were going to land that joke if we didn't have Selena. Thank you, Selena. So anyway, that's happened. We're all tired. We've been eating pizza all day, and I was disappointed. And I didn't know what to expect at the casting call, but I was like, well, maybe we'll get 5 people. And we ended up getting 2 people we didn't know, 1 that we knew, whatever. But it happened. So
You made me and Rachel read, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Steve left before I read.
Oh. Well, I read for Jay, even
I knew you
though
were going to be Jay.
we knew I was going to get the part.
Yeah. So that's where we are. I had to leave. I had to go pick up Cooper, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave has been, like, shuffling around
All day.
and, like, fidgety all day because he's been in the pawn shop. We're doing the casting call in the back of the pawn shop.
The war room.
In the war room. You can see the little piece of paper that's taped to the door in the movie if you look hard enough.
Easter egg.
Yep. And so we're sitting back there, and I'm like, all right, I need to go. And then Dave's like, well, just hold on. I have something for you. And I was like, ah. And I even think I told you, Rachel, I was like, Rachel, Dave's going to do something, record it. I got to go. But
You
Dave's
had your
like,
coat on and everything.
I was ready to roll. And he's like, you need to stay. And he like walked up to me in this blue shirt that he had on, and his hat was backwards.
He wanted to wait for Brittany to leave, because Brittany hung out after she read for a while, because he didn't want to do his monologue in front of anybody he didn't know.
Which is fair.
Yeah. If I didn't know Dave and I heard that monologue, I would be scared for my life and any other woman's life around him.
I know him and I was scared.
I've known him for a majority of my life. He's my stepdad, and I was terrified afterwards. And I was like, well, I'm glad I don't live at home anymore, because I wouldn't sleep tonight.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, Dave's like, I have something for you. And he was dressed up in this weird outfit. And I was like, okay, Dave's doing something. It's worth me hanging out to see. And so I go back in the room, and like immediately, Dave walks in, and it was like Dave was gone.
Yeah.
I don't remember who he was supposed to be, but let's call him Curtis.
He was originally reading for Clay.
Was he reading for Clay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to call him Clay for the rest of the night, because like he was Clay, and he walked in. He was an
God,
early
it was
version of Clay.
awful.
He walks up, and he grabs a foldable chair exactly like he does in the basement scene.
And he starts smoking.
Flips it backwards, and he sits down, and he's got this fake cigarette, and he just stares at us for a little bit. Just smoking on this fake cigarette, and he's just looking around the room. Like, Dave's gone.
It got real cold.
All right, Jay, go.
I don't know where to
Tell
go
us,
from
tell
there.
us what his monologue was.
He's your stepdad.
God.
You've known Dave for how long?
Don't even think of him as Jay. Think of him as how he was coming off.
I mean, at first I was like, ooh, this is cool. This is dark. He spent a lot of time on it as he starts telling this story about this guy. I don't even remember half of it because I'm trying to block it out from my memory. About this guy who's kind of like this misfit and nobody's really liked him. And so he's turned really dark. And I was like, ooh, this is cool. This is interesting. And then as soon as he got to the part about like stalking this woman and like waiting for her to like go to her car, it felt so real, because that's like a fear women have, is going to their cars late at night. Every night when I leave work, I'm terrified of walking through the alley, because I'm like, who's going to be back here? And like, who am I going to run into? And as soon as he started talking about that, I was like, oh, I really don't like this anymore. And then as he talked about like kidnapping her and like everything, I was like, I really don't like this. I feel so uncomfortable. This is a man who I've known my whole life and that I love, and he loves me. And I really, there's so many like weird like associations in my brain. I'm like, I hate him, but he's my stepdad, but I hate the things he's saying. How could he think of this? It was just very real. And it was like, all right, he's actually a good actor. He can play whatever we want him to play. Just don't make it this creepy.
Wasn't that awesome? I left just being floored. I was like, I gotta really go now, because it was probably a 20-minute monologue.
Yeah, he just sat there for 20 minutes.
He just sat there and he
and
told us a story
stared
like
at
he was a
us.
different person.
Yeah.
This psycho.
And I think the most uncomfortable part about it is that his character, this Clay character he created, had no remorse. He was so justified in the terrible actions that he did. And that's the most terrifying part, is because there are people out there like that, but the way that Dave portrayed it, so real, and like, yeah, that's just what happened. I'm like, but why? Who did this
his
to you?
character
Good
went
Lord.
back to his normal life after this like traumatic incident for another person, not him.
Yeah, this
happened.
poor woman, this fake fictional woman, like the rest of her life is messed up, like forever.
I think
And
she
he-
died.
I think
Did
she
she?
did
Another
too,
person
yeah.
killed
I
her
think, yeah, he
in
was,
his
because in the
monologue, and he
monologue,
was
he was
upset.
upset that somebody else got to
Oh.
her first.
Yeah.
But he had, like, kidnapped her or something. But
still.
that is why he couldn't be Clay, is because we wanted Clay to be less thought-provoking.
He was a brute.
Yeah, Clay was just supposed to be this big brute
He
that
was the
wanted the
muscles.
violence. Yeah, he was really into just the violent part and didn't have any forward thinking. He didn't think anything
couldn't
through.
plan it anything
Whereas
out.
Curtis was manipulative and he was really methodical.
Yeah.
And so that's why Dave had to be Curtis and not Clay, even though he was reading for Clay.
Yeah.
So we'll go into that monologue in depth with
Dave.
Oh, God.
Because it's going to be real exciting I want to know his process.
Mom
Because he's
told me-
not
I'm going to be
an actor.
wasted for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be wasted. It's the only way I can sit through it again. It was so
Mom
terrifying.
told me that he spent all day writing it, thinking about it, practicing it, getting in character, and like finding everything all day.
It was all just stuff from the pawn shop.
Yeah.
And he was just madly, furiously typing
all
on
day,
the
and
pawn
you
shop
couldn't really
computer.
talk to him. He was just working things.
You're like,
and
I don't know what Dave's doing, but he's being a weirdo.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
So in that vein, I mean, that was a pretty big moment in the movie where it was kind of like, whoa, regular people can do this for us. Is that what you guys thought? 'Cause that's what I thought. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
damn, we got a little gem here with Dave.
Well, like afterwards, after I was like, all right, I'm not a person. I'm a casting director. Like, what did I just see? And like taking my feelings out of it, it was definitely like this person has so much potential to like be calculating and think and like get so into character, just like the way he sat and like used a fake cigarette was incredible.
Well, and with Dave, I think it was extra surprising because the only other times that we've ever worked with Dave, like on a video sense, he was hilarious. Like,
Oh, yeah, he's very funny.
He had
Do
like,
this.
yeah, can you do with this? And he had these weird like nunchuck sword dagger things, and he's always been like a really playful, funny person. And then he sat down and he just like clicked, and it was like,
Yeah.
like I got a pit in my stomach just listening to him, and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. He's not even being graphic and gory, and I'm gonna throw up.
It wasn't graphic at all,
or
but it
gory.
just
No.
like hinted at so many terrible things, and you were just
terrifying.
like, oh my God, it's like your worst fears being talked out
So-
loud.
This is an excellent segue into my next thought. Because, so this has happened a couple times. We were talking, I've been talking to Theron, who plays the robber, and I brought this
Yeah.
up. Sorry for the repeat, listener.
This
But
one, we've only got one.
it's probably just Jaelyn.
It's
after
me
this.
at work while I'm cooking.
There you go. But, we've talked to Theron, and he's like, man, I liked playing the bad guy, but I kind of want to play, like, a real bad guy going forward. If we do something, he's like, I'm in, make me, he's like, I want to explore that dark side of my soul that no one ever gets to let out. And I think Dave had a chance to really explore this dark side that
It's
he
kinda
wasn't
fun.
able to.
What about
I
you,
bet it is
Jaelyn? Was
fun.
that what
It's
it was
kinda
like for
fun.
you?
That's what I'm
playing
getting
Jay?
into. I would
Oh,
really
yeah.
love to know how
How did you become Jay?
sweet bonnet wearing Laura Ingalls Wilder wannabe from back in the day turned into big spooky Jay.
I think the easiest way for me was just to be angry. Like, if I could choose one thing that day to be angry at, it would just help with everything. Like, so many times when I was filming, I was obviously really sick, so I was really angry that I didn't feel good, and I
Just wanted
felt
to
like...
beat Steve's face in. You just focused on
Well, kind of.
destroying
And
him.
I was just like, I was drug out of bed to be here, and I'm just sitting around, and I know that's how movies work. You do a lot of sitting, and then, like, you act for 5 minutes, and then you sit while you, like, get everything
Different
reset
angles.
up and everything, and, like, that's how it works. But I would get so mad, and that really helped when I could just feel and then dwell on that anger, and then it helped Jay come out.
I think a big moment in the film, watching it, for me, like seeing you and being like, oof, I'm sorry, who you bitch? is when you lean forward and you say, and who did you give my money to? Because you almost like do like this underbite snarl at him when you
There's
do
some
it.
teeth getting gritted.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
show, you
really
literally show some teeth like a wild animal. And I was just like, oh, I met you when you were 16.
Just sweet and innocent.
I opened mine.
There's a moment. Here's an Easter egg. That's one of my favorites. It's the scene where you turn, and it's a big moment in the movie because I think it's finally, you know that Jay's Jay, but then it's like this is the first little inkling of like, oh, Jay's got some power. Look out! Is when Ty's like, no, seriously, you're not really Jay, right? And then you turn and you're just like, shut your mouth, pig.
You're gonna need that in prison.
God, I hated saying that line.
I know you
'Cause it's
did.
Just
was
like
so
the
good.
connotation, and it just made me feel so awkward to look at Ty and just like look up at him too, because I'm so much shorter and
Well,
say
he's a
that.
giant dude.
But also the
He is.
amount of times, like as a woman, I've been like, "You're not really that. You can't be the manager,"
Oh,
and just
yeah.
like being talked down to. when I finally had a chance to be like, shut the fuck up, it felt really nice.
I bet.
Try starting a business with a male friend, okay?
Yeah.
And then have everyone you ever meet just assume that you're just that male friend's wife who got lumped into it.
It's really frustrating and annoying. So
I just love making them uncomfortable and being like, his best friend is my husband.
And I married them.
At the pawn shop, people were always like, oh yeah, you're Steve's wife. I'd be like, I'm his sister. And watch them be like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Ew.
I would just be like, no, I'm his sister. I'm not, but it was the easiest way.
You're an honorary sister.
Yeah. I was just also the easiest way to get the old men to stop being creepy.
Yeah.
So,
So hold on. The Easter egg I'm getting at is if you look in the background after you say that line and you look at me, there's a real moment in my expression where I am literally surprised in that moment, because at that moment you weren't Jaelyn, my sister. It was like, oh, that's Jay's here. Jay's really here. And you could just see my eyes go up, and I was like, oh fuck, this is cool. But then I had to focus and be like, okay, turn back into Steve. You're not the director. Shut up.
But you think your character would probably be like, she
What?
said what now?
Who is this?
No, that's
It stayed in, but that's
little
one moment I really like.
Teenage girl who walks in carrying around a golf putter and
Well, you didn't even carry it in. You just took it.
Yeah, I
You're
just
like,
took it
"I
from
take what I
Josh."
want.
Yeah, I probably thought, I was like, oh, she's back for more DVDs.
So that you're saying the shut your mouth pig line, you hated saying it.
I really didn't like it.
When we were doing a lot of the writing, there is a line that you really, really hated that we had it in. And it's when TFB is leaving the pawn shop and she says, don't think I can't see you staring at me as I walk out the door, you homo. Because it's 2020, yo. We're woke. We're not a bunch of bigots, okay? But I remember having a conversation with you about TFB being that person. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we wanted to perpetuate that
it wasn't homo
way
in
of
the beginning.
thinking.
It was faggot in the beginning.
Yeah, I did
so
not
I think
appreciate that.
No, well, I have a gay brother, man. I don't appreciate any derogatory stuff either. I love my brother. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But it was part of trying to make sure the audience didn't like TFB, because we made Brittany come back and redo her scene, because the first time she did it, we felt bad for her. We didn't dislike her. So I think that was a big part of making sure people were like, that chick is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just an ignorant thing to say.
Oh, it's
and
so ignorant.
To follow it up with Booger, whatever Booger says, I think he's like, well, that was
that's
insensitive. Because it is. It
we've
doesn't
all
even
seen this
make
movie
sense.
100 times, you guys. We could do the lines. Sorry.
Well, it wouldn't even make sense to call somebody a homo if they're looking at you and you're a woman and they're a man. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we wanted for it just to seem like she's just this off the rails, says whatever for a reaction, and I don't know where I'm going with it. But I really fought for that to stay in there, because a lot of people were like, no, it's really insensitive. But it was like, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point.
And
yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that. But it's an interesting
F-bombs,
subject.
We've got murder. We've got all kinds of horrible things in this film. But there came a line for Jaelyn as somebody that helped with the character development and writing of the film that was like, no, this is the line you don't cross.
But why is there a line?
Ask Jaelyn.
Well, I think sometimes there is no line and you just get to cross as many as you want, because that's what making art is. It's trying new things and going really far one way and really far the other way. It just made me uncomfortable growing up with many gay friends and seeing what it had done to them. And I did the Laramie Project, and that was a very emotional show to be in, and that was a big part of that. So for me personally, it just felt very insensitive, and I was like, we don't need that. We can change something. We can do something else to make us not like her.
I think she didn't want to perpetuate that type of thinking.
I think it just gets thrown around so uselessly, and it has a lot of weight to it to certain people, and I don't like just throwing things around uselessly. Every F-bomb that we dropped, I was like, okay, that makes sense. We're not just saying it every other word. It works.
Hey, not for nothing, but saying it every word might work out, because isn't that in Clerks? Fuck, fuck, fuck. Fuckity fuck, fuck, fuckity fuck.
Joe Pesci won the Oscar for a supporting actor in freaking Goodfellas, and he slammed out more F-bombs than, like, you can even imagine. I think the entire... We should look this up, but I would bet Joe Pesci said more F-bombs in his Oscar-worthy performance in Goodfellas than was said in all of Hocked. I would be willing to wager that, and that would be exciting to know. I threw that at my great-grandma's face the other day. She's like, there's a lot of F-bombs. Poor Grandma. Probably shouldn't have done it. But I was like, well, Grandma, Joe Pesci did that. Anyway,
Just like that, too.
I did it just like that. She couldn't even hear me. It's okay. She's our biggest fan.
She is. She really is.
You're going to hear me typing on this podcast. I'm Googling it. I'm sorry.
He won't tell you. I think I looked it up.
Screen Junkies did it, and it was
I think
506 F-bombs.
In all
Damn.
of Goodfellas, right?
I Googled how many F-bombs were said by Joe Pesci.
No way. That's a thing? I love the internet. It's so good.
You can find everything.
Oh, it doesn't say that this is specifically Joe Pesci. It says 506 F-bombs. Screen Junkies decided to create a 2.5-minute cut of the film featuring only F-words said in the movie.
2.5 minutes of straight F. That's awesome.
Yep.
I mean, it's a really long movie, though. It's almost 3 hours, I think. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yes. Jaelyn, you're a millennial. You're young.
Am I a millennial or am I Gen Z?
I think
We're all
technically
millennials.
we're
You're
all
right.
millennials.
But
you're
I'm
right
right
on
on
the
the
edge
edge.
there. You're
Yeah.
on the
Depends
cusp
on who you
of
talk
being
to.
Gen Z, Zoomer,
I
if
get
you
those
will.
Zoomers.
As a millennial who is somewhat younger than Steve and I and more woke than we are,
Yo,
As-
I'm woke.
as
Okay,
the young
boomer.
people say. Yeah.
Still don't get it. Stay in the chair.
Where would you like to see like that type of let me rephrase this. There are filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, and it seems like there are no rules for Quentin Tarantino. There are no lines to be drawn in the sand. And then there are more of the typical movie that's made out here in our neck of the woods that are focused on like sustainability or having an existential crisis. Where do you think Hocked falls in that line, and where would you like to see independent films going in the future? Where is the line for
I think
our generation?
Hocked is the Quentin Tarantino movie of Montana. Because
I'll take it.
yeah, you're right. All the movies that get shot here, they're always like for nature and people wandering through the woods and finding their souls or like some big thing.
Existential crisis?
Yeah, that makes you really think. And our movie is just kind of like, here's a bunch of dark stuff and here's a bunch of funny stuff. We mixed them all together and it's really good. And well, I think it's really good.
I think it's good, too. I'm glad you said it.
Wow, I think that's the first time I've heard Steve say he thinks it's good.
I said it's good. Put that on the bottom of the poster.
It's
Yeah.
good.
G-O-O-D, period. Stephen Drake.
Self-deprecating person I know. Not self-deprecating, but I don't know if I know anybody that's harder on themselves than Steve.
It is impossible.
It's hard.
It's impossible for any of us in this room to look at Hocked and
Yeah,
say
we're all
it's
biased
good
as
or
fuck.
bad.
Yeah.
And it's not even just because we're biased. I'm too close to it.
It's because
We
we're
all
either
are.
in it or we worked on it or
We spent our whole life for a
We
year.
watched
spent
the
a
sausage
year-
get made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't not
so no
see
matter
it.
what, we're going to find things where like that scene is so awesome. Like the scene where Lanny's in the basement and it gets cut right into Cooper's scene. I think that's such a beautiful transition and just like beautiful thought process to go from really dark with incredible lighting and acting to something incredibly light.
Every day.
Incredible
That
acting
scene
by Cooper.
made me feel like the most emotional person in the world because Rich does such a good job in that scene being tortured, and it goes to black and he's like screaming, and then it's like happy-go-lucky Cooper. He's like the most adorable little 2-year-old in the world eating his damn loopy fruits.
Yeah.
And in that moment, because it's such a quick transition, in that moment you're watching it and you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's the beauty of it because you get like so far down and you sympathize with Lanny and you're terrified of what's going to happen to him and who is this Jay person who does horrible things and all of a sudden you're like, baby, aw.
Yeah.
Cute
And,
baby.
and it like really makes you think. Also, for me, it makes me think because I know both of those scenes were shot in your house. So in my
Yeah.
head, how it gets played out is that Lanny's being tortured
In my
downstairs.
basement. I know.
And
Right below
upstairs,
Cooper
you're just
eating his
sitting-
freaking cereal.
eating Cooper.
See, I ran that by a
That's
lot
so
of people. I was
funny.
like, I don't know, because you see the basement,
Well, you see the window.
exterior of the basement,
so
you're like- and you can see the
paneling on
same
your house.
sighting.
Yeah.
Nobody else is
I
going to
hope
know,
no one
though,
else notices that.
until now.
But my dad also said, he's like, look, Cooper, Lainey's gonna die under you, like stuff like that. It's
Drake,
just funny.
you can't say that to a 2-year-old.
Well, he said that to me, like
Oh,
as if
okay.
he was there.
So, being on the same vein of, like, we're all too invested. Like, none of us can watch Hocked without being biased. I know you said earlier that you hate watching your own performances.
Oh, God. It
But-
was the worst.
You have to admit something. When it's the grenade scene and Steve goes, Booger, get the door. And then there's the deet of the door.
That's
And
freaking
then,
awesome.
But then Max does this blah, like Inception noise, and the sea of
Yeah.
giant, scary men open up, and it's this little teenage girl who walks through who's got just black eyeliner and all black, and she's got these I'm gonna kill you blue eyes. Like, tell me you had to be proud of that.
That was really cool.
I got chills watching
That was
it.
super cool.
On
I
the
was
premiere?
also super nervous in the premiere, though, and like I knew it was coming, and I just held onto my seat, and then finally I grabbed my boyfriend's hand, and I was like, oh my God, here it comes. And he was just like, it was so good. And I was
Shout
like,
out Isaac.
yeah,
He made
Isaac,
the
artist.
concept art. It was
Amazing.
amazing.
He's amazing, but that's a whole
This isn't
different
about
rant.
you, Isaac.
God.
Gosh.
Shut up, Isaac. Your day's over. Just kidding. I still love you.
But
Yeah.
my sister was sitting next to me at the premiere for that, and I got chills. You part the sea of goon thug men, and here you are. And my sister turned to me and went, "Who the fuck is that?" I was like, "Oh, that's
awesome.
Steve's little sister." And she was like, "What?"
I'm really proud of that exact moment
Yes.
because no one saw it coming. We didn't leak anything. None of the promotional materials, sorry had
Jaelyn.
you on it,
I
except
know.
for the bumper sticker, which we did release at the premiere, but I don't think anybody looked at it too heavily.
Yeah.
No
finally
one
got
saw
to
that
be
coming. And I didn't know if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing. Because sometimes if a twist hits you too hard, you're like, God damn it. That was just a twist to be
I think
twisty.
it
Yeah.
went over really well.
I think it did too.
Everybody
hope
I've
so.
talked to thought it was awesome.
They're like, what?
What? And there's
Unbelievable, which is
one
good.
review out there too that says the surprise twist at the end is incredible, and I was like, yeah, that's me.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
No. Tell me more about the premiere. Walk me through how it felt for you. Because
So chaotic.
you had to be...
So chaotic.
You weren't really... I walked in being Steve Dirks. Ty
Steve
walked
Drake, the
in
director.
being, Detective Marshall Connor. Because there'd been things out there, right? There'd been all
People
these
knew.
things out there. You walked in as Jaelyn Silvey, but you left as Jay.
Fucking Jay.
Well, yeah,
What was that
when
like?
I walked in, the only people that I talked to was family members or a couple people at the Ellen that I knew just through work and just small talk with people. And I talked to Mom, and she obviously knew that I was Jay, what was coming. But I talked to Angie, Matt's wife,
Angie
and
didn't
she
know anything.
didn't
Oh,
know
really?
anything.
Did not know
Nobody told Angie. So at the end, she was like, "What?" And I don't
Jaelyn
think
kills people.
Grandma and Grandpa knew
Nope.
either.
They, didn't, they went into it blind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Gotta
so
get one
at
of them
first
on
it
here.
was just talking oh, it's so exciting, you look so cute, this and that. And then going in, because I did look really cute, by the way, just gonna put that out there. But
Hot
walking,
AF.
yes, we all did.
Fire emoji.
Um,
Nothing makes me feel older than sitting here with you.
that's because nobody goes fire emoji.
Yeah.
Too
Oh
old.
my God. Move on, people.
But walking out of the theater was completely different. So many people were a lot of, obviously our family was I had no idea you could be so evil. And people made jokes and they're we don't want to get on your bad side. And then a couple of other people who I didn't really know. I feel terrible. I forgot her name. Who owns the shop in Belgrade? who let us film.
Rhonda.
Rhonda and her son came up to me and they were like, your acting was so great. And like, we were like walking into the Baxter when her son like told me it was awesome. And
he
like,
was so excited. Yeah.
he was so excited. And a couple other people were like, what? I had no idea. And like, Isaac's family was all there and they were blown away by it too. And yeah. So walking out, I got a lot more like, oh my God, I had no idea you could be so mean and evil and murderous. And I was like, honestly, same. So
that's so good. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I remember we talked about it before, but like, what's it like being you and expecting, and this could go for your plays too, right? Mm-hmm. But what's it like when you know like your grandparents are coming to your play or going to the movie where you're a murderer or you're going to be dropping F-bombs or killing people, like all these things. What do you do about that?
Well,
acting is acting, man.
I have to give people a warning beforehand. Like for the play that I just did at the Verge, I dropped the F-bomb so many times in that show and flipped off like the entire audience at one point in time too. Like I was just like a completely different person. So I told them like before the show, I was like, so there's a lot of swearing. I swear quite a bit and that's just, now it's your choice whether you come or not. And it's better in a movie because I'm not performing it. So I'm like, all right, my dad's sitting behind me and he just watched me murder somebody. Okay, this feels weird, but I don't have to deal with it until later. But when I'm on stage and it happens, then I get in my own head and then I'm like, no, I have to say fuck. But there's a person sitting in the audience I don't want to say that in front of, and then I'm just like all worked up. So
it's a little easier to be evil on film instead of in a live audience.
Yeah, because it's already done. I can't change it. And then I just get to sit back and be like, hey, that's what my director told me to do.
Ah.
Blame it on your brother.
But when I'm on stage, I'm like actually doing it. And then I'm doing it in front of them in person. And like that pressure is like still there because I've always been a very good kid. And I've never sworn in front of my grandparents and my father until like just recently.
Y'all should see Jaelyn's photos as a little kid. She looks like the poster child for like sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Just adorable.
Freckles, Little House on the Prairie, Barbies.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding earlier. There was like, how many years did you wear a bonnet?
You just did
all
that
the
like
time
for fun?
Bonnet and full dress?
I would wear like
kind of a
Little
weird
House.
kid.
I was the
She said
weirdest
Ma
kid.
and Pa.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
Ma,
wanted to be
I'm
called
hungry
Half
for
Pint.
supper. It's time for supper.
I
Gotta
loved-
go put the horses away before supper.
I loved Little House on the Prairie. I would wear their dresses like to school, and I mean,
I liked that show a lot when I was a kid too, but it wasn't that extreme. I just liked it because that dad looked like my dad. So
I liked playing dress up a lot, which I guess explains why
You're
I
an
like
actress.
acting and pretending like I was living in the 1800s on the prairie in my backyard. But
Yeah.
well, nobody ever
It's
gave
so
me
awesome.
crap about it except for Steve. So
Whoa.
Steve, the guy whose first real video was Body Function Boys,
I played a zombie in that movie, and it was great.
the short
Thank you.
film.
It's a great film. You should check it out on YouTube.
I still remember
I did
having
not
a
mean to
bucket
plug your
of
shenanigans.
hot water thrown at me.
Was it hot water?
Well, it was kind of
Probably.
warm.
Okay, there's a pretty sweet moment in the bloopers where we dumped a bucket of water on you, and then you fell over because it hit you so hard. You were so small,
I was tiny.
and like
your mom
I came
pregnant?
running over. My mom was pregnant
She was
with
pregnant
Kimberly,
with Kim, and Greg's in like a little stroller going, Mom.
but I let the record show. I ran over to you because I was sad. I was like, oh, she fell down, and I like got you up, and I was like, it's okay, because I didn't want you to cry.
Yeah, because if I
get in
cried,
trouble.
you would get in trouble because you were mean to me.
And it would ruin my shot. Just kidding. Yeah, we've had that's another
That's a whole
That's
different
a
video
kind of
for
podcast.
a
podcast.
different day. Yeah. Well, I mean, oh boy. I wanted to circle back just for a second. What was the most annoying thing for you on set as the assistant director?
Well, personally, it was because I don't know a lot about filming, so I would be like, why aren't we just doing something? But it's because you're like doing lights and camera angles and figuring out exactly how you want it to work. But then I think the other biggest frustration was all of like the scheduling conflicts that we ran into and like the time crunch where we were like
fucking life.
where we like we need this person here and we're like, well, we won't get him for another 2 hours, and like, well, what do we do for the next 2 hours? We can't film anything else. So then we're just like eating Wendy's at the pawn shop for 2 hours, like just like the constant delays was really frustrating.
It's a hurry up and go lifestyle. Mm-hmm. When you're going, man, you are going.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the days when I was, like, exhausted and sick out of my mind, and you were like, please come. And I was like, okay, I better get a damn Oscar for this.
I will say you did excellent. I think we ended up using the scenes that you had strep throat more so than we used the scenes where you were not sick.
Like I said, I was pissed off at everything because I was sick and I was miserable, so it was easier to be angry.
Right.
It was method acting.
Was that the worst moment of filming for you? Was it the sickness or was it something else? Not necessarily frustration, but just like the worst moment.
I think the worst.
I feel like you're digging for something here.
No.
What are you looking for, Steve?
I just want to know what I put people through.
I honestly think this will probably be the same for a lot of people. The day we filmed on the parking garage, and it was so freaking cold, and no matter what I did, and I was wearing like a lot of warm clothes, I was so cold anyways. And then watching everybody get out of the car and they look cold, and just knowing I couldn't like do anything about it, and then like all of the permits got messed up, and like we couldn't even fire the blanks, and I was like, that was the one thing that was going to be really cool about today was shooting blanks, but now we can't even do that.
You know what though, she's the MVP of that day because she was like the only person that wasn't involved in that scene and didn't have to be there to film, and she came and helped us out with the audio anyway for at least a few hours before she had to go to work.
Before we figured out how to film and do audio in the car, where we both sat in the passenger seat?
I think I have a picture of you guys somewhere like that.
That was great. I think that was also really frustrating filming inside of a car, how we couldn't get the actors together to like riff off each other. Like they're talking to me and I don't know their lines or the inflection of anything, and I'm like trying to do the boom and read somebody's lines, but not like
get
rustle
crushed by
paper
me
and
like my elbows in your face, and I got my camera out. Yeah,
and it was just like a very inopportune filming.
We've joked a lot of times about how I knew everyone's lines when we were filming, and it was because of that. It was because so many times we couldn't get the right actors together to riff off each other that I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna know all of the lines for the scenes we're doing today, and then eventually we film all the scenes and I know all of the lines.
That's impressive.
One of my favorite moments was
the most useless knowledge I have.
Yeah, but you knew my lines better than I knew my lines. So.
That was your body double. That was your stunt double.
Yeah.
There was a day where we were shooting my reactions to you in the pawn shop, and you weren't there that day, and Kevin was.
Kevin was you.
Kevin was
my God.
I had to hold the camera.
I love that.
Kevin was reading your lines
Kevin.
like he was a 16-year-old girl, and it was
hilarious.
Glorious. He was like, "You better not have my money," and like I was trying my hardest, and the problem was for a long time my eye line was way off. I was looking up at 6'5" Kevin, and not down at where Jaelyn should be.
5'7" Jay.
So I ended up having to look at his belly button and talk to Kevin's belly button as he's sassing me.
Oh,
like
that's
a 16-year-old.
Awesome.
Super funny.
Yeah, the scene actually that Steve ended up using where you see the golf club poke the money bag.
That's definitely
Kevin.
And who
did you give
my money to?
He was more of a jabber, whereas when we actually got you on set to do it, you did a swing around to the face. It was more of a loop.
You're just threatening, I could kill you with this putter
you
right
let
now.
it
Whereas
linger.
he was just
Well, I
really
think
funny.
we talked about that in Jay's character development. She's very calculated.
Calm.
She knows if she could price everything out, she probably does. She probably knows exactly what she's paying each person.
That's
and
why
what they're doing.
How much a round of 45 ACP.
She knows exactly how much money she has and what she's spending and what kind of trouble she can get into that day.
It's the little details
that really sell it.
And that's why I made her more calculating and more instead of so jabby, just a circle around and more fluid with the actions. She knows what she's doing.
I kind of want to ask you about, we sat down and we went back with Jay's character a lot farther than most other characters, I think. In fact, maybe the most.
Mm-hmm.
We went all the way back to
I
like
think
her
that was-
childhood.
I think that was
Yeah.
really important in developing Jay because everybody else had so much more opportunity to fine-tune and hone who their character was.
While
They
we were
got to
filming.
like
them.
grow through the movie
Yeah,
too. They got full
whereas
character arcs for the most part.
Jaelyn being Jay, she had a very limited amount of screen time where she had to come off as this evil son of a bitch. So she had to have, I think, more background than anybody else for her to really be able to be like,
To come
this
in
is
and
what I've been
take over
through.
the show
This is
at
what
the
she
end.
is.
Yeah.
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 Well, tell us about that. Like, I know we did it together, all three of us. It was in this very room.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, how does that even happen? I can't even remember. Why did we come up with your backstory? Why was it the way it was?
Well,
We
when you have an evil character like Jay, you have to think of like, well, why?
Mhm.
What happened to her to make her this way? Was she just born as a psychopath, or did like a series of events create this? And for me, as a person, it was easier to think of a series of events created this. Pops, the previous drug lord, did something to her that made her so
Don't say too much. Don't say
Real
too much.
bad.
so mad.
Why?
Jalen and I are going to do it, okay? We're going to write it. We already talked about it.
Well, we don't exactly know
fine.
what he's
I just-
done to her.
Something bad happened.
But
to
Something
something
Jay.
bad
bad,
happens.
and like
And Pops did
we've
it.
like brought up like her parents and drugs and deciding like were her parents on drugs, like were they part of the drug like community, like where did her parents fit in, like how did she get roped into it, and then how did she grow up seeing this, how did she get involved with Pops, what made her break to murder him.
No, I don't want people to know that Pops isn't her real father.
Yeah.
You can't say why did she get involved with Pops.
She got involved with Pops. It's all good. What I wanted to get at with that
Her
was just,
relationship with Pops.
I wanted to know if that helped you as an actress in the moment. That background. Did you dwell on that? Is that something good that you would recommend for like future filmmakers to do with each character? Or was it a waste of time?
I think it depends on the character. I think it's good to have background for each character so you know where they're coming from, but also it's okay to like build on that while you're filming. Like we never really worked into Steve's backstory that much other than his family was in the pawn business. Like we went back like two
Steve's character is the
generations.
worst. I hate him.
He has a kid, but like that's all you really get from
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
And Booger you kind of like get a little bit and we didn't like dive too far into those characters. It's easier for a
Off
good
the bat, we found him eventually. But
I think
yeah.
it's easier for good characters not to have very much at first, but for darker characters
Really?
you need to have a little bit more going for them.
Interesting.
Well, good people are just like pretty much normal people, whereas bad people, you know, like
Not everybody
they're
kills people
much
with
more
putters.
complex. Yeah.
I never killed anybody with a putter.
She uses an
You
axe.
implied
I
it.
used an axe.
Yeah. He used like a roofing hammer or something at the end.
Yeah, I did.
So good.
So I guess for me, doing the darker characters is a lot more important
Yeah.
in like the pre-filming process. I would say you have to have a backstory for every character eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether you find it through the actor or the writer or whatever. I'm open to everything. I like to hear everybody's ideas as long as it doesn't take up a lot of time on shoot day.
Yeah.
So.
When I'm directing a play, there's always a day I sit down with everyone to do character development, and you don't have necessarily like as much time like to think through it as much as like granted we didn't have that much time to think through it.
Not at all.
But we had time to sit and talk about it, and you had the benefit of taking more than one take, but when you're on
Live.
stage, you just whatever you do goes.
You roll.
And
yeah.
so it's really important for me to have a day where we do character development, and I have like a whole worksheet because I work with little kids. Well, they're middle schoolers, but they're still pretty little. And like, who's your character? Where'd they grow up? What are their parents like? Are they rich? Are they wealthy? What do they really want? And I think something we talked about a lot was goals and like the characters' motivations. Like eventually at the end you realize Steve's motivation to do everything is to save his son. Like when they bring up Cooper and your girlfriend, like then it's like, now I have to do something. I'll stab a man in the leg if I have to. I'll go out with a grenade that I don't know if it's live or not because it means saving my kid.
Mm-hmm. And finally,
And being
And you
around
found-
for
grows a
him.
pair.
That motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And Jay's motivation to clean up everybody's messes because they screwed it all up.
Jaelyn, you were on screen for such a short amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was probably the most impactful amount of time out of everybody that had a scene.
Definitely had to be.
Yeah.
Well, everybody was pretty much in that scene, too.
Oh god, it was a nightmare to schedule, but that's not what I was getting at here. Did you prefer working on like the writing and the character development, or did you prefer that short amount of time that you had to shine? Because I don't think the character development would have been as fleshed out as it was if we didn't have your help for that.
I love character development. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And I've always liked writing and being creative and like spinning stories. So having the opportunity to create these in-depth stories was super cool. And I really enjoyed that because it's something new. But it's always fun to be like the little surprise character and you get your like one moment to just be an absolute badass and then be like, all right, I'm done now. That's what you get. That's what you get to think about tonight when you leave the theater is, who was she? And I think that's cool. I like being an impactful character, even if it's like for the smallest moments. Not saying I wouldn't be a lead in any kind of future movie that you want to do,
Hint,
but like
hint, yeah.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So what do you think? You think Cowboy got you at the end?
No.
No?
No.
He had the poison darts from
He
the
had
frog
piss. Yeah, he had frog piss. He was ready to go ghost.
Yeah, we both know that was beer.
She was. He would.
Keep it in the movie,
trying,
Jaelyn.
You were trying to steal his soul. Okay. What do you think a man would do if you were to try to steal their soul?
Well, I think it's Cowboy, and Cowboy's absolutely crazy.
True.
So he would try.
Yeah, but he. If you watch, here's an Easter egg for you folks. If you watch the movie, pay attention to Cowboy's rant when he comes into the pawn shop, because
It's not important at all.
the after credits come back. Okay, there's a woman trying to steal his soul.
It's Jay.
It's Jay.
Jay's trying. I don't know how they got involved or where their
You
paths
never know.
cross. We haven't discussed that.
You never know with Cowboy.
Well, he's.
But I don't
really
think
like.
Jay's gonna be taken down by Cowboy.
He's a wild card. Did you
I
see his
think-
moves in the pawn shop with that knife?
I think
Did
Jay.
you see how he ripped his pants in the alley? Like,
I think
Yeah.
Jay is. I think Jay's letting him watch.
Oh,
oh yeah, she totally knows
she's
he's
next, or he's next.
No, I think that she's gonna use
I
him
think-
at some point in the future.
there. To like dive into the psychopathic side of Jay, she likes the fact that he knows so much about her. He's probably the only
Yeah.
person
He's
in
the
the
only
world
person.
He's
who
the
knows
only
what
one.
she's done.
She's killed everyone else.
And she thinks it's hilarious that he will run
He's
around
out there
town
spouting
being
the
like,
entire
she's gonna
Jay's
catch my
story.
soul and like do all of this and like starts talking about her. But
Yeah.
nobody believes him because he's an absolute lunatic. So they're like, calm down, Cowboy. And when
I
he
love it.
goes off, you're just like, dude.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
I-
she's letting him watch.
She knows.
I just really like the Cowboy character because if you're passively watching, and it might not even come off in the first viewing, you might think, oh, he's just a red herring. He doesn't mean anything.
He's
It's just
the
to be funny.
background for pawn
They're
shop
making fun
people.
of this guy. Yeah, it's more filler for the pawn shop. When really, yeah, he's almost more all-knowing than everyone else in the
Yeah.
movie because he knows who Jay is.
Yeah.
And he's gearing up the entire time to fight Jay. It's crazy. What a ridiculous thing we made.
We make a short film of them
Just Cowboy.
fighting.
Yeah, just Jay and him just duking it out in the cow field.
Oh, God.
Are you picking up Cooper today?
Nope.
Okay. I was just, if you were, it was time for you to leave.
I know. I think it's funny that
Well, then I'm gonna drink this.
TFB doesn't come back nearly as hard as I wanted her to.
Well,
You
But-
gotta watch closely, though, because, like, that scene where you meet, not Cowboy, Beer Can outside of the police station, he's like, that's just my
That's
roommate.
just my roommate.
That's-
Yeah.
You're like,
hold on,
wait
we're
a
gonna
minute.
do an Easter eggs episode.
Okay.
And if you want, you can come back for that one
I would
since you
love
helped
to.
write everything. But we are gonna do an Easter eggs episode,
Well,
and
one
we're
thing
gonna
I
release
just
it for Easter.
yeah, I
I
just
love
wanted
that.
to
Easter's
say I
Easter
won't
eggs.
say any more Easter eggs, but I really wanted the underdog in the movie, kind of to be the big
Hero.
unknowing hero. Like, pawnbrokers in the movies never get any credit.
No.
They're the bad guy, or they're the middleman
Even
that
in
helps
TV
the bad
shows.
guy.
Like in
Mhm.
Always
Yeah.
Sunny.
So that was a big initial like thing that I wanted for the pawnbrokers. I wanted the pawnbrokers to win one in the end, and they're not necessarily the best characters in the movie, but they kind of win in the end with like
Yeah.
a couple strings attached. You know, they keep their mouth shut, or they get murdered, or their families burned to death. But whatever,
Yeah, no
they
big
win,
deal.
It's a
right? They
fair
get what
trade.
they want.
They
in
get
the
a lot
end.
of money.
Exactly, and the cops don't win, and I go on
They're
about
bad
that, but
cops.
whatever. But Beer Can Rob and Cowboy, in particular, you might not realize their role in the movie until you've maybe watched it twice, and you're like,
Well,
Maybe
oh my
maybe
God.
for Cowboy 3 times. I think
Maybe.
Beer Can it's a little more pronounced.
Beer Can's obvious. You're right.
Like, as soon as you see Beer Can at the police station
You're like,
dropping off
"Oh
the card,
my
you're
goodness."
like, oh my God.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it all wraps up, and I wanted that to be a thing. I
Yeah.
wanted the unsung
You really have a thing
guys.
for, like, the weird twists. Like,
I guess
you have
so.
a villain who's a young girl, your hero is rando
Is a
homeless
drunk
A
man.
homeless guy, and the guy who might topple the mighty drug empire is some
Well,
schizo.
who is he Cowboy could arguably be a paranoid schizophrenic from any outsider's point of view.
Mhm.
I think with Cowboy, even a third viewing for the average person might be what it takes, because I feel like people have that innate feeling like when you hear somebody start to ramble on in that tone, they're like, oh, he's just spouting nonsense.
just
And
crazy.
they just shut their brain off.
Yeah,
They stop
pay attention.
genuinely listening. But if you genuinely listen to what Cowboy is saying,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to figure out the whole fucking movie before anybody else.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's gonna steal my soul.
Yeah.
Was that originally planned like that, or was that when we came up with it, like, what, like a month ago?
It was
when we
not
talked
originally
about it?
planned.
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm
It
not
was
that smart.
not-
I did
yeah.
want
Until
Beer
we
Can
were like,
Rob.
what if Cowboy is there?
Well, I had a problem. I knew Beer Can was gonna save the day.
Yeah.
I'll take credit for that.
Beer
'Cause I
Can's
always
Great
wanted-
Adventure.
Yeah, I wanted Beer Can.
Excellent adventure.
I wanted to tie him in. I wanted him
It's
to be
an
the good
homage
guy
to Keanu
that
Reeves.
didn't know he was saving the day, but did anyway, because he's actually just a genuine character.
Yep.
Despite all his silly faults.
He was just in it for the beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's in it for the beer. Well, he got his BMW at the end. So
Yeah.
Whatever. But
He gets
I
an
had a
undisclosed
problem.
amount of money.
yeah, enough to get a used BMW. But I had like this problem halfway through filming where I was like, we did all this stuff with Cowboy and we did all this stuff with TFB. Does it really like help the story at all? I'm not even sure if it does. And then eventually, I don't remember what we did, but I think I was at Mom's house and we were talking, and then all of a sudden it was just kind of like, but Cowboy's talking about a lady.
It was when we were getting
Cowboy's
ready
trying to kill a lady.
Well,
A
so
lady!
when
we
we
were getting ready to film, like, the credit sequence.
Jay's wrap up, right? Because
And we brought it up. I was like, what if, like, kind of as a joke, like, what if Cowboy was just watching? And then we were like, wait.
Wait a minute. Does
What
that all
if
just
she's
make
the
sense?
one trying to steal his soul
here's
and
the
he's
full
trying to go
circle
ghost?
moment. So initially, like Steve was saying, we felt like all of these random like extra characters, they needed a follow up, right? Because they were on enough for people to be like, well, whatever happened to them? Especially with Jay, because people are like, well, she's the real villain. What the fuck is she doing?
Still
But
killing people, FYI.
When we were writing for Cowboy's initial scene, and we had no idea that Cowboy was going to have anything to do with Jay's wrap up, the whole steal my soul thing is from a real pawn shop moment that Steve
It was
had.
a guy, and he was talking about he was going to get frog piss. He was
gonna
going
dip
to
the
dip the
darts
darts
in it.
in the frog piss and go ghost because he thought his wife was trying to kill him.
Yeah.
He thought his wife was going to kill him, steal his soul, and he was there pawning stuff to get out, like fix his Suburban. The tires blew out, and he thought his wife had the tires blown out
Like on purpose.
on purpose. So
Yeah.
that all came from just a real
It
story.
was a real thing.
Yeah,
And so
and
it was just...
It was
it's
just
one
by
of those
chance that we
things.
eventually
Yeah.
got to a place to tie it all together that really came together.
And I
most
think that
excellently.
it's one of those things that's like, if we had never worked in a pawn shop and we never had all of these pawn shop experiences, none of this would have worked out the way it
No.
would have. There would have been no full circle moments. There wouldn't have been little Easter eggs to tie everybody in together.
We had all the pieces.
Oh,
really.
yeah. Thank God that we fucking pieced them together.
We'd
in a
like
way
half
that
the story.
is decent.
Yeah. The funny parts in the story came from real life.
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely.
We just tied them together, and the rest that's serious just came from
Yep.
solid like planning. I think.
Genuinely told that I killed someone's daughter because I wouldn't give them $20.
Yeah, that worked
Yeah.
its way in.
Yeah, it
Fun
did.
stuff.
I wish the box of cereal had made it, but we talked about
There was
that
so
on my
much,
episode.
so much, and that's the one thing I wanted to do more was maybe, but I couldn't because you can't have TFB win the day.
No,
she's terrible.
she sucks.
So that's why
She's the
Cowboy
worst.
and Beer Can win the day. She does come back with the pregnant belly, which is just so solid that happened.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Very happy with that.
Our friends Brittany and Andrew played Beer Can Rob and Tori fucking Bassett.
And if you didn't know, I don't think we've said it. They're married.
They're
in real life, and
married
they had
in
a
real
baby.
life.
And that was a super pregnant Brittany.
So that was really Beer Can Rob's baby.
Yeah, it sure was.
I just love how she comes in. She's like, "You did this to me.
Look what you did.
My back hurts and my feet are swollen and I have stretch marks.
That was a pretty funny moment because I had all this stuff written out for her, and she was just very kind, and she was like, "Well, I have an idea. Can I start really like laying into him for things I'm mad about him? Like I'm actually mad at him about?" And I was like, "Yeah, go for it." And she just started screaming at Andrew, and I was like, "This is totally real.
I love it
That's
because
awesome.
I scheduled that filming, and the first time we scheduled it, it didn't work out for some reason, and then I had to go to Arizona, and so I remember like calling Brittany and calling you and being like, "All right, you guys are good," and so you filmed that one without me, and so I did not get to see that until I saw the rough cut,
Right.
and it was just amazing. And she had their baby 1 week later.
Really?
Yep. She had Bowen a week
That's
after
awesome.
that. So she was literally like, she could have gone into labor while I was screaming at Andrew.
That would have been great. I would have kept the
Being
cameras
TFB.
rolling.
Oh, no.
That was the first time like I ever used the Ronin too, which was wild. Anyway, well, I only have one last question, unless you have anything else to say.
Go for it.
Who wins, Booger, Bobcat?
Oh, I hate this question.
What? I need your real opinion. Like, don't mess around here.
I really think a bobcat would win. I think.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes!
I do. I think Booger has hyped himself up. But if he is this like pretentious kid who's like the richest boy in town, how likely is it that he's gone out in the woods and faced a wild animal before or got into some fights? Granted, I don't know his backstory.
I love
but
your
it's
perspective.
a freaking bobcat. Those things are little, but they are fierce.
And the Bobcat we used was like 6 months old. Is that right?
Yeah, he
He's
was
told
a
us
little
how old
baby.
it was,
He was
and it was
born
just
in
a
May.
It's a wee
And
little
we-
baby.
Bitty.
Born in May, and we filmed with him in November.
Yeah, I bet you that thing
He
was
was just
double.
a baby.
Yeah, no way does
so
he take
cute.
that thing.
He was so cute.
I
like
wish
how
he was a
you-
little more vicious looking, though. I almost stepped on him, though, and I felt so bad.
Yeah.
But also, like, think about Madison,
Mm-hmm.
the devil cat we grew up with. That cat was ferocious. You would just walk down the hallway and it would like almost
It'd
take
claw
your
your
ankle
ankles.
Wait,
off.
this is
Yeah.
a Steve family story? I don't know.
You don't know about Madison?
I know, like, all the Steve
Oh,
family
wow.
stories except about Madison.
Wow.
I think the first video on my first YouTube page was me poking that cat with like a
Yeah.
wiffle ball bat, and it just like clawing it
Yeah.
to death.
Angie's cat was psycho. But like think
Imagine
about
that.
cat is scary enough, but think of it bigger with longer claws and sharper teeth and no like
Stronger?
domestic
Incredibly stronger.
thoughts. Like it's just gonna eat you.
It only knows, life or death. That's all it's
And
lived
if-
with forever.
Booger's like annoying it, which he probably would be, being like, "Come get me, kitty."
Mhm.
It would probably just beat him up pretty badly.
It'd wreck him.
Oh yeah.
He's not making that fight. No way. I don't care the
Yeah.
weight class.
I'm glad you're in agreement with us.
Yeah.
We've had some pushback.
There's been some.
I mean, when you see it, like, Josh is so
Booger is a
tall.
fan
He's tall. He
favorite.
bulked up. I
And
get it. I
Yeah,
He's
get it.
Josh
so
got swole.
tall, and that cat is so small. Like you would think, like you could just like kick it across the room, but
Well,
it's
I
a
hope
cat.
that people watching the movie don't think that Steve is like this little person because of Josh's towering height.
Well,
Steve is a normal-sized man. He is
I
like
should have
6
gotten
foot.
an apple box, is what I should have
Yeah.
done.
Instead
Just
of-
like Tom Cruise style to
Yeah.
stand next to Josh the entire time. Because
He's
it was
like-
hard to frame a lot of that.
Oh, it
'cause
was
he's,
such a nightmare. I had to
he's
get like 5
6'6".
feet
Yeah.
into the air, like
he's
on
huge.
a stool, and yeah, Josh is very tall. He's like 6'6". Steve is 6 foot. He's a
Exactly.
normal-sized man.
With boots on. Like,
And,
jeez
uh,
Louise.
So a lot of the scenes had to be at like a downward angle, like where they're on the phone with Lanny and the $5 knife box was a bad idea. Like those scenes were pretty tough because Josh is just so hot, so fucking tall.
Yeah.
The best scene is the one when we walk outside and we're looking at TFB leaving.
Yeah,
And
no, it's just apple juice.
it's
is
well
all.
shot. It's well composed on Booger, but you can just see like the top of my nose. And I'm
We
like,
have a-
hello,
We have a
someone
blooper.
look at me.
We have a blooper of Steve jumping.
It's
in
the
the
same
air,
shot. It's
saying
like
his
one
line.
frame after the shot we used was
Yeah.
me jumping up, trying to look in the frame because I knew I was gonna be like itty bitty on the screen.
I was like precariously standing on the side of your truck to
Yeah.
get the angle, but it doesn't matter. It was just Steve's a normal sized person, but Josh is just so gigantic that like the fact that we had a young Bobcat did not help.
Didn't do it any justice.
It didn't help.
but everybody loves
scale or
the
balance
Bobcat
the scales.
thing.
I love it too. I didn't know. I was worried the entire time from the second I wrote in the Bobcat thing. It got written in because I wanted some sort of banter between the two characters, and I knew it was going to be Josh and myself. And I was like, well, what could we yak about that would be real? And I was like, okay, maybe the Bobcat conversation, because it's a legitimate argument that we have. I'm of the viewpoint that he cannot take a Bobcat. He thinks he can.
The
And,
only way to know for sure is to let him face off.
we had the
This
opportunity.
argument is seriously 5 years old. They had this argument
bet.
when I moved to Montana and I
Mhm.
lived with them.
I don't
I
remember
bet.
how it started. We'll ask him. But I was worried because we put a lot of time and money and effort into making this our like reoccurring joke. It's
Yep.
our running joke throughout the movie. Like
Steve
we
bought a
keep
legit
putting
stuffed
in
Bobcat.
these little
a
bits.
terrifying looking Bobcat.
It's a bad
Steve
Bobcat,
spent
but
his
it
own
helps.
money on that.
I did. I fronted the money for the Bobcat. But like that's a big thing where like I'm not all that funny, and so to write jokes that are funny, are you kidding me? Like that's hard. And to like put all your eggs in one basket and be like, okay, let's see if this one running joke, because if that would have flopped,
Yeah.
that's a big part of
Okay,
the movie
but
that's like, oh,
Steve just
crap,
got, like, the
we whiffed.
biggest eye roll he could ever get from me. I'm not funny. Yes, he is. He is funny.
Yeah.
But I think it is much harder
hard to write jokes.
To write funny than just be funny.
Yeah.
So you are funny, but I think writing funny is not an easy thing to do.
No, well, imagine if it wasn't a funny joke. I don't
Yeah.
even know if it is funny.
Dude,
but
somebody
imagine
with
if it
peanuts-
No,
wasn't.
somebody thinks it is funny. So Isaac's brother thought it was the best scene of the entire movie.
So
Like,
did
it was
Patrick.
Which one?
hilarious. The Bobcat scene where he fights the Bobcat.
Where he fights it.
Yeah.
At
and
the
like,
end or in the beginning?
in the beginning,
Yes,
and then how it
it's
keeps
gold.
coming up.
Especially with,
so
like, the
much that
cross-eyed-
he told like his best friend, and then his best friend saw me at the theater and was like, "Oh, I heard you were in a movie," and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Yeah, Ansel told me," and he said there was an awesome scene with the Bobcat and like this long running joke with the Bobcat, and I was like, "Yep,
Yep.
that's the movie."
That's why the logo or the thumbnail, whatever you
For
call
this
it,
podcast, yeah, the podcast
thing.
art.
Oh, podcast art.
Oh,
I
that's
think
It
that's
is
what
art.
it's
It's
called.
the one of the better pieces of art that we got for sure.
Yeah, is podcast art. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex. She made us a really cool Bobcat.
Yep,
And
we
that's
made it.
the art
our-
because if you don't watch the movie, you don't understand the art. And
if you don't watch the movie, you don't
shouldn't-
understand this podcast.
you
yeah.
shouldn't be listening to
I
this
heard you
podcast, so-
listening.
Yeah, we're
Go watch
unloading.
the movie.
Well, Jaelyn, I think
Yeah.
that's all we've got for you today.
Cool.
Thanks for talking Hocked.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks for
talking
having me.
Hocked.
Come
Unless
back when you're
there's-
21 and we can drink 3 beers together like normal.
Which should be soon,
Cool,
I think,
give me
right?
6 months.
I know.
Oh, close enough. Well, that's it for this week. Let's talk Hocked next week on Hocked Unloaded. Next week, we're joined by Rich Ledoux, who plays the lovable but pill-addled Laney Green. Rich walks us through his experience of becoming Laney Green and what it took to go back to his everyday life. Keep up to date on all the Hocked things that we're doing and where we're doing them by following us on all the major socials at Hocked the Movie.